Welcome back, everybody, to DelBeccaro and Hook's year-end show. We're in for a treat today. Don't forget to share this on YouTube and Rumble and at patriot.tv/DHED, DelBeccaro and Hook's Enlightened Dissent welcomes a good friend of mine. And this is going to be a fun little year-end episode. It is the Doctor of Marketing, Dr. John Tantillo. He's the marketing professor at Lander College for Men at Touro University, and he's the author of the popular book, People Buy Brands, Not Companies. His column, Marketing and Branding Lens, can be found at Newsmax, where he often appears, and his website is Dr. John Tantillo, Tantillo, like the olive oil, Dr. John Tantillo.com. John, welcome. Folks, John and I have been friends since the Cleveland administration. And what I enjoy about him is we have a similar background. My father was the VP or the head of marketing for one of the biggest companies in the world back in the 70s and the 80s. And so I had a marketing degree by osmosis. And we come at politics much the same way, which is very old school, which is you should have a brand. People should be able to identify. So if you think of Volvo, I ask people when I do my talks about marketing and politics, tell me what you associate with Volvo. And instantly it comes back safety.
Yeah.
And that's what should happen with political parties as well. So we invited John here today because there's a bit of an upset of the apple cart, if you think about it. Way back in the day, coming out of the Cleveland administration era, that's why I made that representation. The Republicans were associated with big banks and country clubs. That's sort of where that started. And then the Democrats became the working man's party, especially with FDR. But this last election, people said, or a lot of people thought, that the Democrats became the party of the elites and Republicans were the party of the working man. So who better to talk about this in this year-end show than my friend, the marketing professor. John, great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Well, thank you, Tom. It's wonderful to be here. And I have a few interesting ideas up my sleeve. So let's get, yeah.
Let's open it up with, give us your thoughts about on this switch and is there a Democrat brand today?
Oh, yeah. And strange as it may seem, a lot of my friends haven't seen the change, or Trump made the change. He underscored the change. And what is that change? That really the Republican Party, or Trump, is the working man's politician. And what I find really bizarre is that they say that Trump lies. Well, as a businessman, as a marketer, he's a salesman, and he doesn't lie. He exaggerates. But journalists don't see it that way. So Joe Biden could say, I will never pardon my son, and he's not criticized when he changes his mind as lying. But if Trump said, there are 5 million people that attended the event and there's 4.5, he lied. And the real difference there is that the salesperson, which Trump is an exaggerator. He's a salesperson, while politicians are more careful at the words that they use for fear that they will be pointed at as, you said this. And that basically is the main difference between Trump and other politicians. The reason why most people don't like Trump is because he says the obvious. He doesn't filter, and people are so used to politicians picking their words oh so uh, gingerly that there you have it. That really is the problem. And I also understand the Queens thing. I'm from Queens, and you'll get a kick out of this story. My dear friend Joe Santoro said used to defend Trump by saying he's from Queens. I have a friend from Queens, John Tantillo. He's like that all the time. It's just part of being a New Yorker, but not a New York politician. New York politicians were very careful not to be too, as we used to say in television, hot. You don't want to be hot. You want to be cool. And there you go.
John,
Yeah,
welcome to the show. Go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I had a friend who used to say about Trump's mean tweets, you hired a contractor from Queens. What did you expect when you did that? But John, you recently wrote an article about the Democrats and their branding. Why don't you? That's at Newsmax. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I feel that the Democrats have lost their way, and they have become the party of the elites. And I have a cousin who used to work for the government. He has a PhD in economics from Berkeley. He's a year younger than I am. And my sister and her husband, who are both academics, are committed Democrats because they don't see the difference in the part. Their automatic response is to vote Democratic without actually listening to what they said. Now, what I did is I changed my party affiliation. I thought I would never do this. I became a Republican because I just couldn't take the tactics that were being used. And the Democrats, to be quite honest about it, were wrong in terms of assessing how America's voters feel about issues. Were all wrong. I mean, people just can't relate. Most average people can't relate to left ideology. They just can't. If you're right out of college, maybe. If you're a graduate student, maybe. But this woke stuff just can't be tolerated. Like if you say that America is racist, and you just had Obama elected president twice, not once. You have more black politicians than you ever had. You have more black and Hispanic physicians. You have more, I believe now, or if I may be wrong, female physicians are there's just as many as there are male physicians. It just doesn't calibrate when Democrats say you're racist. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It just doesn't, and so that really is the problem. And another thing that is different, and why I believe Trump did win, and Tom and I used to talk about this all the time, and Republicans received God or listened to God when they did what I call political intelligence. I define what political intelligence is, and in a Newsmax piece. And what it is, it's the ability to pull your voters out or get them to vote, along with having a army of lawyers to challenge all of the election loss cases that before the election. They used to do it after the election. And if you know anything about judges, Republican or Democrat, there is going to be no judge that's going to switch votes. They won't do it. They won't do it. No. And so what the Republicans did is they did those two things. As a matter of fact, this guy Scott Pressler, who really was very successful in, of all places, Pennsylvania, and they're talking about defeating the governor there. If this model is used throughout the red states, the Democrats are gonna have a big problem because they're on the wrong side of the issues. And what are the issues? The issues is the trans issue. There is going to be no working class person that's going to understand how a man can play women's sports. It just now you can feel sorry, you can have empathy for that group, but and my reaction to that is let trans people play men's sports and have fines or reprimands if anybody criticizes or makes fun of them. But let them play the sport that God has in fact given them. That doesn't mean in any other situation they shouldn't be respected and a lot of yada, yada, yada. But they have to understand. And this is something that marketing has taught me. It's not about us as marketers. It's all about the customer, or in this case, the voter. You can't get people to vote for something that is alien to them or they don't feel comfortable with. Like this idea of mass transit, long distance mass transit, the railroads. First of all, the railroads are a 19th century technology. No one is going to take a train from New York to Chicago. I mean, yeah, in the old days you would do, or even worse, New York to LA by train, which takes 5 days. I mean, who's going to do that? But the Democrats, you can't tell them. They just spent money on a high-speed rail from, I think, Los Angeles to Las Vegas. I don't think it's good. I think I will be very surprised whether or not it's going to be used, because Americans don't have that mindset of using trains. And even Europe, when my German friends want to go to the Alps, they're going to using their cars. They're using the Autobahn. No one in Europe is using trains. The only people that use trains are tourists that get the Europass that can go all around the place. But and constantly the Democrats feel that it's the right thing to do rails, or to in fact not waste energy. You can't. The genie is out of the bottle. Okay, yeah. We love our air conditioning. There is no way we are going to become Europe and not have air conditioning. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, so, they push these issues down people's throat.
Exactly.
And preach to them. Steve, go ahead.
Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
You know, I kind of picking up right where you left off, the trains is a perfect example of this. I think that correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you'd probably agree. First of all, I think Trump is probably the biggest brand ever in politics.
Oh, absolutely.
I cast my memory back to the days of Gerald Ford and remember whip inflation now. He was really trying to brand that as something. It ended up going over like a lead balloon. It didn't work, and the branding was off. Trump has branded MAGA. It's unbelievable. Meantime, you've got Democrats and their liberal progressive acolytes in the media and in the academia. They seem to be living in a bubble, and the only people that they associate with think exactly like them, and then they're shocked. It's like a scene out of Casablanca when things don't fall their way, because everybody they know votes exactly the way they do or thinks exactly the way they do. So if we're talking about winners and losers in 2024, I think at the very top of the list, you'd probably have to put network news, mainstream media, lost.
That's on the list.
That's the babysitter of the Democrat messaging machine. And once it's derailed, speaking of trains,
right,
everything gets derailed. So what do you think about that? Trump is really a marketing genius, no?
Yes. And the reason that he lost in 220 is he was a marketing genius, but they did very poorly at political intelligence. They underestimated, and you listen to the media, polling only accounts for 2% of the vote. It's meaningless. And in politics, what you can't do is underestimate the voter. And what you got to do is get your vote out. Now, the way I learned that from my political mentor, who used polling and won and caused upsets by doing a polling operation. And I'll explain to you how we used to do it in the old days. You would first assess how many votes you needed to win the primary. And this is where it was in Queens politics. And let's say it was 5,000. Okay. What you would then do is delineate based on the district, the number of Catholics you were going to get, the number of Jewish people you were going to get, the number of blacks you would get. And you would delineate that. You would then get a list, okay, a voter list, what they call a primary voter list. And you would call these different demographics, because it was broken down that way, and say, my name is John Tantillo, and I'm doing a poll for ABC. Are you going to vote for Tom DelBeccaro? And they'll say yes. Well, you would take DelBeccaro's card or take his name and put a Y for yes. What that meant was that on primary day, you would call up Tom DelBeccaro and say, I'm John Tantillo from the Better Business Bureau or the Better Voters Bureau, and we want to make sure you voted. Did you vote today, Mr. DelBeccaro? And you would say, no. Well, do you need any help getting there? Okay, yes. And so we would get a car and make sure that DelBeccaro got to the poll and voted. And you did that 5,000 times. That took a lot of effort, but that's what polling, now they do this differently now with social media. You get the email, But that's the way we did it in the old days. You first identified who it was that were going to vote for you, and if they and then get them to the polls. And that's what the Republicans did this year, and that's why they won. And by the way, then we had election law lawyers as well, and we were up against the biggest machine, Donald Maness, who committed suicide because they were going to put him in jail for all the corruption that was done. So we were up against those guys, and we used to run against what they called regular Democrats. We were insurgents, and they couldn't understand why we were winning. Well, we had a very definite methodology, and that was there's more nuances, all right. And we used to work with the unions, okay. DC, what, DC 27, utility, not the utility, the municipal workers, the city workers. So we had a fellow there by the name of Norman Adler, who was brilliant, a brilliant tactician that knew all of those ways of pulling. But that went away. Now, to be fair, our good friend AOC, that's how she beat the county leader named Crowley, who we ran against. Okay, she beat him because, and he was also the congressperson, because there were so little voters. They did the primary in June. He was such a Weisenheimer, Crowley. Well, let's do it in June where we don't have as many people voting. Well, she was smart. She polled the people and won with like less than 5,000 votes.
Yeah. So, John, we got just a couple minutes to go. Who's your, other than Trump, who's your a big winner that you liked in 2024?
Well, I would have to say Tesla, also Amazon. I mean, think about that. Netflix. Netflix is the biggest entertainment content creator in the world now. Okay, and everybody will poo-poo it. You think of Warner Brothers or you think of the major studios. No, it's Netflix. All right, and I tell interested artists, young artists, that. All right, and it's the internet. And here's something out of left field. Beyond Meat, the vegan substitute that has been very creative in its distribution. So that is a lookout for them. And hey, you got Elon Musk and Tesla.
SpaceX.
Well, just whatever he touches turns to gold. He really is. He's a very, very interesting man. And young people love him. Young people, they just adore him.
Which is why this could be realigning. His success could be realigning.
Absolutely. I have to, yeah. And the Democrats don't get it. See, the activists don't understand this. They think that it's their ideas alone. I got news for you. Socialism doesn't work. People, why are everybody wanting to come to the United States? It's a 19th century philosophy. Actually, it has its time in Socrates and Aristotle. It just doesn't work. I mean,
no doubt. Okay, John, we got to wrap up this segment. We appreciate you coming. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Do you think the Musk, real quick, the Musk-Trump team,
yes,
brand, do you think that becomes so popular that that can elect a Republican again in 2028 and keep the Congress?
I do, just as long as, and this is my background, I'm a psychologist by training, as long as the egos don't get. And I look at Trump as an older person who's not threatened by, there is that, when a man gets older, okay, he thinks of his legacy. And I think he sees Musk and his family as the legacy. He really enjoys being around Musk. So I predict that this is good for 12 years, at least 12 years.
All
Yeah.
right. Dr.
Okay.
John Tantillo, thanks so much for joining us today on DelBeccaro and Hook. Everybody, please check out again us on YouTube and Rumble and Patriot.tv. Please share this with your friends. And we'll be right back with our predictions for 2024.